Oman, for a lot of people, it's simply a place in the Middle East, or a country I've seen on a map once. And yeah, maybe the name sounds familiar, or maybe you haven't heard it at all. In any case, the fact that Oman flies under the radar so well, that's actually one reason why this place is so fascinating. So just sit tight, because I'm here to tell you all about it. Starting from 3000 BCE, that's 5,000 years ago, while other civilizations were still figuring things out, people in what's now Oman were already masters of metalworking. They were already loading up reed boats and sailing to what is now Pakistan and Iraq to trade copper. And if that wasn't enough, they were also sitting on one of the most valuable commodities in history, which I bet is something you wouldn't expect: frankincense. Sure, we know it as an essential oil today, and maybe we recognise the name from the age-old Christmas story. And just to refresh your memory, it was one of the gifts delivered to Jesus by the 3 wise men. That's why the name might sound familiar. But back then, this stuff was a big deal. See, the ancient world like Egypt, Rome, Jerusalem, they couldn't get enough of it for their temples and rituals. So massive ports like Soumya were built specifically to ship this liquid gold across the seas. Though that was just the beginning, because when the 7th century rolled around, Islam swept across the Arabian Peninsula, and Oman was one of the first places to embrace it. Actually, during the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad himself. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about just any branch of Islam here. I'm talking specifically about Ibadi Islam, a distinct and ancient denomination that still defines the country today. It's known for being moderate and tolerant, which really explains the vibe of Oman today. Eventually, an Ibadi Imam became the country's leader. Now, Imam in this context isn't just a prayer leader. It was a title for a ruler who was elected by the people based on their merit and piety, rather than just inheriting a throne. Along with this new faith, something else happened: the golden age of maritime trade. Omani sailors were pushing further than ever, south to East Africa, east to India, and all the way to China. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that. We're talking about Omani ships sailing into Guangzhou, China, as early as the 8th century. And not by accident either. These were master explorers and merchants who owned the Indian Ocean. But just like they were able to go out and about, other countries eventually noticed them too. In 1507, the Portuguese arrived. The first thing they did? They took Muscat, meaning for almost 150 years, one of Oman's most important coastal cities was under foreign control. And no, it wasn't because Oman was weak. Quite the opposite, actually. It was because the location was too valuable to ignore. See, Oman never became a colony. Not truly. Even with the Portuguese controlling the ports, the interior of the country remained quite independent. Their identity stayed intact. And in 1650, the Omanis finally decided they'd had enough. They rose up and expelled the Portuguese for good. And you wouldn't guess what happened next. Oman didn't just take back what was theirs, they expanded. Omani forces chased the Portuguese all the way down the coast of East Africa, wresting control away from them. And for a time, the Omani Empire was so massive that the capital wasn't even in Oman. It was moved to Zanzibar. Can you believe that? An Arabian kingdom ruled from an African island. Then in the 18th century, the Persians tried their luck. Enter Ahmad ibn Said. He drove the Persians out and was elected Imam in 1744. And his dynasty? Well, the Al Said family is still ruling Oman today. That's over 280 years of continuity. But going back, after he took charge, Oman started signing a series of treaties. First with Britain in 1798, then with France, and eventually the US in 1833. Now, what were these treaties actually about? Basically, they were friendship and commerce deals. Oman was playing the long diplomatic game, securing trade routes and making sure the big colonial powers of the time stayed on their good side without ever actually surrendering control of the country. And for a small nation, that was a rare and brilliant survival strategy. But unfortunately, from this point on, let's just say things get complicated. All because of one thing: oil. It was discovered in the 1960s, but the Sultan at the time, Said bin Taimur, was an extreme isolationist. We're talking about a guy who kept the country stuck in time. Hardly any schools, only 2 or 3 hospitals, and barely any paved roads. He basically let the oil money sit there while the country stagnated. Then in 1970, his son Qaboos launched a bloodless coup and took power. That's when the flip switched, so to speak. Sultan Qaboos, who is now called the father of the nation, took a country that was practically medieval and dragged it into the modern age. He poured oil revenue into education, healthcare, and massive infrastructure. He even defeated a communist-backed rebellion in the south and opened Oman up to the world without losing the traditional soul of the country. And over his 50-year reign, he became one of the most respected and beloved leaders in the entire region. When he passed away in 2020, his cousin Sultan Haytham took the throne. He's now steering the country toward Vision 2040, a massive plan to build an economy that can thrive even after the oil runs out. More on that later. For now, it's time to see a little bit more of what this country's all about. First things first, Oman sits in the southeastern corner of the Arabian Peninsula. It's roughly the size of Germany, coming in at about 309,500 square kilometres, or 120,000 square miles. And as you can see right here, it borders the UAE to the northwest, Saudi Arabia to the west, and Yemen to the southwest. To the east, that would be the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. Then there's the Muscat Peninsula. It's this little exclave that's completely cut off from the rest of Oman by the UAE, and it's poking right into the Strait of Hormuz. So the Strait of Hormuz, that's the narrow corridor measuring only about 39 kilometres or 24 miles at its narrowest point. But get this, it's where roughly 20% to 25% of the world's oil passes through, every single day. That's why it's so important to our story. But let's hit the pause button on that for a minute, because I want to take you on an amazing journey through Oman's landscape. Though if you want to experience it for yourself, scroll down to the description for my recommended heritage cruises and stays near these iconic sites. And just so you know what you're getting yourself into, I want you to forget about what you think a Gulf country looks like for a second. I mean, yes, there's still desert, and a lot of it. In fact, the Rubalcali, or empty quarter, covers much of the interior. And somewhere in that desert is a low-lying basin called the Al Samim, also known as the Mother of Poison. What's with that name, you wonder? Well, let me tell you, it's actually one of the world's largest quicksand fields. If you look at it from this angle, the surface looks pretty solid, right? But believe it or not, cars have disappeared into it. Yes, huge 4x4 vehicles. So imagine how easy it would be to swallow small human beings like us. You have been informed. Then you have the Hadjar Mountains in the north. That's where Jabal Shams rises to about 3,000 metres, or just about 10,000 feet up in the sky. It's the highest peak in eastern Arabia, and let me tell you, standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon of Oman up there is a trip. Being that high up, the temperatures are actually quite cool, and the cliffs are no doubt dramatic. Trust me, the views from up there look like they don't belong in the Middle East, but I suppose that's where the magic lies. And speaking of magic, down south, the Dhofar region does something unimaginable for a desert nation. From June to September, seasonal monsoon winds, known as the Kharif, roll in and turn the landscape green. Yes, you heard me right. Lush, fertile. It's basically Ireland in the middle of the Arabian Peninsula for 3 months a year. Most likely unlike any other desert you've seen before. Besides that, of course, we can't talk about Oman's landscape without putting the spotlight on its capital, Muscat. It's wedged between jagged volcanic mountains and the sea on the northern coast, and it's home to about 1.7 million people, which is roughly a third of the country's population. The second city, Salalah, sits all the way at the other end of the country, about 1,000 kilometres, or roughly 620 miles from Muscat. Honestly, at that point, it's much closer to Yemen than the actual capital, which is kind of wild if you think about it. I just wanted to point it out because it's full of coconut groves, banana plantations, and it's the historical heart of that frankincense trade we talked about earlier. So yeah, 2 cities on 2 opposite sides, but both of them were built on something that Oman has been mastering for 5,000 years. I mentioned it earlier, which means if you've been paying attention, you should know what they've mastered. So if you do, I want you to type it in the comments before I make the big reveal. Okay, do you remember that choke point we talked about? The Strait of Hormuz. Yeah, we need to come back to that. Because here's the thing about Oman. For 5,000 years, this country has understood one truth better than almost anyone else on Earth. Location is everything. Just think about it. The frankincense routes, the Indian Ocean trade, the maritime empire that reached all the way to Zanzibar. what do they all have in common? See, it was never just about what Oman had. It was more about where Oman sat. And today, nothing's really changed. Much. Oman sits right at the mouth of the Strait of Hormuz, which you already know. But did you know that as of 2026, while regional tensions have some tankers anchoring in open water, waiting for all clear signals to enter the Gulf, Oman's main sea access lies completely clear of the chaos. In other words, while the world is worried about choke points getting blocked, Oman has massive ports like Duqm and Salalah that sit outside the danger zones. That makes Oman the ultimate safe harbour and the region's most reliable logistics hub. The IMF literally called it out. Oman is projected to be the fastest growing economy in the entire GCC in 2026, with a 3.5% GDP growth rate. So while some of its neighbours are dealing with market contractions, Oman is actually growing. But Oman knows it can't ride the oil wave forever. After all, it currently ranks about 19th in global oil output. That's a lot, but it's nowhere near Saudi Arabia or the UAE. That's why for the past decade, they've been building something bigger. And the results are already showing. Non-oil exports hit over 1.1 billion Omani rials in just the first 2 months of 2026 alone. And then there's Vision 2040, remember that? It's Oman's long game. We're talking special economic zones, renewable energy, tech sectors, logistics hubs, and massive free trade agreements, including a major partnership with India that was signed just recently. No wonder it's been described as the largest bilateral trade deal Oman has signed since its agreement with the US. Yeah, this isn't a country that's scrambling to diversify, because it's already doing it. So, all that oil? It's helpful, but it's not the real key to Oman's success. You know what is? Position. Diplomatic position, geographic position, economic position. And if you remember from our history lesson, these are the same qualities that made ancient Omani merchants legends on the Indian Ocean. Now it's keeping Oman steady, while the world around it is anything but. Alright, up until this point, we've nailed the history, seen the geography, and even talked a little about the economy. But do you know what they're all pointing towards? Where they all eventually merge? If you said culture, you'd be correct. And I'll be frank with you. You're not going to realise it at first, but trust me, the layers are there. Just walk into an Omani home today, and you'll be greeted with Omani kahwa and dates. That's how they show their hospitality. And that same hospitality is what made Omani ports the preferred stop for traders from India, China and East Africa thousands of years ago. It just never really left him, so don't be surprised to hear foreign influences in their music, because if you listen closely it carries African rhythms, styles like liwa, which are a direct echo of the centuries Oman spent connected to Zanzibar and the Swahili coast. The food is another thing. It's got Indian spice, Persian depth, and an Arab soul. If you haven't tried shuwa, slow cooked in an underground oven, you're missing out. And then there's the frankincense, as if we haven't talked about it enough. This aromatic resin is still burned at the end of meals and still traded in the souks of Muscat and Salalah. Yeah, the same resin that travelled to ancient Egypt and Rome. The same one carried to the infant Jesus is still present in everyday Omani life. It's like a thread that refuses to break. I mean, even the architecture tells the story. In Muscat, you won't see shimmering glass skyscrapers like in Dubai. By law, buildings have historically been kept low, rarely taller than 40 metres or about 10 floors, and they have to reflect traditional Arabic styles. That's why the city feels so grounded, so real. And at the centre of it all, that would be the majlis. It's a room in almost every home where people gather, drink coffee and talk. No agenda, just people being present with one another. It's a tradition so special it's actually protected by UNESCO. And in a world that's always accelerating, I say that's something we can all adopt from Oman. But that's just me. How about you? After everything we've just discovered about this place, what can we learn from a place that's spent 5 millennia just being exactly what it is? As always, if you enjoyed this video, you'll love this next one.